We are going to read the story of Mount Shasta from a point of view of an explorer who was in Mount Shasta and shared about his adventures. The climb to the top of Mount Shasta is usually undertaken in summer during favorable weather. Then the deep snows have melted from the lower slopes. At that time, storms are much less likely to occur. But whatever the season, Shasta's peak is covered in a layer of snow and ice. I agreed to attempt the climb in the spring in order to take a barometric observation from the summit. My companion, Jerome Fay, and I began our climb on April 30th, 1875. We took pack horses to carry supplies. We made our way toward a camp about 15 kilometers up the mountain trail. We planned to camp overnight and then get an early start the next morning. So you see this over here. This is a profile view of Mount Shasta. Let's see what else our friend shares. We had not expected to encounter snow 1.5 meters deep on the trail. We pushed on throughout the day but made slow progress. As the sun began to set, we realized we would not make our destination by nightfall. Determined to go on, we left the horses. We carried a day's provisions and our blankets up the slope to the timberline. There we set up camp, sheltered by a block of red lava. We slept only 2 hours. At 2 a.m. we arose to a fine starry sky. After cooking our breakfast of veggies on the coals, we set up for the summit. Our pulses raced as we surrounded by the beauty of the morning. We plunged ahead, hardly stopping for breath. Our boots clumped over the red lava apron that led us to the west side of the mountain. We made our way toward the smaller of the two cone-shaped summits. We crossed the gorge that separates the peak and swung around the Whitney Glacier. The hot foam rolls, vents through which volcanic gases and steam escaped, hissed and belched as we hiked upward. At 7:30 a.m., we were at the summit. Faye and I marveled at the landscapes that surround us. I took the required barometric measurements and looked to my companion. At first, I did not understand his frown as he stared southward. As I looked into the Shasta Valley, I knew why he was dismayed. The valley was filled with gray and purple cumulus clouds. My first thought was how beautiful the storm clouds were over the mountain. Then I realized our danger. Faye and I immediately began our descent. We moved slowly down the mountain. By 1 p.m., the storm reached the summit and began pounding us with hailstones. As we stood beside a hissing fumarole, I observed that the hailstones were at an unusual shape, with 6 straight sides and a dome-like crown. Faye was interested less in the shape of the hailstones and more in the condition of the storm. All at once, the violence of the storm hit us with all its might. Had I been alone, I might have attempted the descent. However, Faye convinced me that the only sane course was to ride out the storm near the hissing hot springs. The temperature quickly dropped more than 11 degrees Celsius. The wind became violent, lightning flashed. We had only one chance. We removed as much clothing as possible and lay in the fuming mud on the edge of the hot springs. Thus we spent the night freezing on one side and boiling on the other. As we lay in this state, both threatened and protected by the mountain, my mind wandered to the origins of Shasta. The giant cone of Mount Shasta stands in constant snow. It can be seen from anywhere within a 80 to 160 kilometer radius around the mountain. This majestic mountain of volcanic ashes and lava rises 4,317 meters above sea level. It towers more than 3,000 meters above the plain on which it sits. Shasta originated from repeated eruptions that build up and outward like a trunk of a tree. The mountain is more than 250,000 years old. It is two peaks that are the results of multiple eruptions. The remains of Shasta violent history can still be found on the sides of the mountain. Gases, mud, steam, and boiling water spewed throughout the cracks from the magma of molten rock below. The fumarole in which we were laying was one such outlet. As quickly as it came upon us, the storm ended. The sky became clear and was filled with stars. The temperature was still too cold to attempt our descent of the mountain, so we remained in our cooker until morning. Then we trudged down the mountain in our frozen, stiff clothes. Luckily, we were met at our camp by a friend with horses. As we descended, we could feel the sun's warmth on our backs. I looked over my shoulder at the great white cones of Mount Shasta. The ordeal of the previous night seemed like a faraway dream. A Cascades volcano. Mount Shasta is located 65 kilometers south of the California-Oregon border. At 4,317 meters, it is the second highest mountain in the Cascade Range. Mount Shasta is an example of a stratovolcano. Stratovolcanoes are composed of lava flows, ash, and other material blown out by explosive activity. Shastina, the prominent cone on the west side of Shasta, was active 9,200 years ago. The Hotlam cone at Shasta Peak was active a few centuries ago. So we got to create our profile of Mount Shasta and also a topographic map of Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is a volcano. It is the second highest mountain in the Cascade Range, and was a volcano that was active not too long ago.